Hi everyone, welcome to the VyLos AI Thought Leadership Series. I'm Hassan Ghiassi and I'm here with David Grimm, our CTO and co-founder. In every episode of this series, we're tackling the fast-moving realities of current AI, technology, and business strategy in short, 15-minute segments designed for busy decision makers. So while David and I both live and breathe this space as experts, we're approaching these conversations a little bit differently. My goal here is to step into these topics with a learner's mindset. So no matter where you are on your business journey, whether you're just starting out or looking at AI and already deployed enterprise grade models, I'm going to be asking raw foundational questions and really stripping away assumptions and looking at these challenges as if I've never solved them or seen them at the scale that you need. I'm going to be asking questions during these calls. And also, every single month, we want to give you the opportunity to get a strategic 30-minute consultation with our team. And so I'll leave that link for you. And with that being said, we just ran a webinar on Claude Code and how to get started coding in a terminal and things like that. And I think there's just a few learnings that we have from that. So, David, did you have some reflections or some ideas as we talk to more and more COOs about where they are in the journey and where we maybe can help people most moving forward?
Yeah. So, of course, it's very powerful to use coding agents, no matter if in Claude Code or in any of the other harnesses like Pi or OpenCode and so on. It's very powerful, and you can generate a lot of code and generate a lot of software. But of course, it's not so easy to maintain, or if you want to automate a business process that you write code for it, even if you could, it's not so nice for someone else then to maintain it and to hand it over. So there is still, I think there is really the time right now for these automation tools, no code, low code. I think they really have a momentum right now. You see it with n8n. They are valuated with over 5 billion now, which is a lot for a European startup. And I think they really have their time right now because they are in the middle between the flexibility of a coding agent and the UI of an app, which is nicer to users. And I think in general, there from product management, you always have the choice. Your tool can be flexible or it can be easy to use. You cannot have both usually. And this is true for coding agents. You have maximum flexibility since you can write what you want. But of course, it's super complex because you have to maintain the code. And these no code and low code solutions are somewhat in the middle. They are very flexible. You can do a lot with it. It's still fairly complicated if you go down the rabbit hole, but it stays in a surface that still, if you hand it over to someone, they can look over it and they can get it instantly. They can understand what this workflow does, and you don't need to be a really good developer to use these tools. So I think they deliver now what they promised for the last years, that you can just tell it to set up a flow. They also have AI agents now where you can talk with them and they set up a flow. And this is kind of what we wanted to have 5 years ago, and now is their time, kind of. So a little bit out of luck or a little bit out of occasion, I don't know. Luck is when opportunity meets preparation, I guess.
Yeah, very, very interesting. And I'm just going to quickly share for anyone that is not familiar with this tool we keep talking about, n8n. So this is the tool for everyone to see. And as David was saying, this is what you would call low code or no code, and being able to connect together some of these dots. So David, when we talk about some of these things, I'm curious to ask, is there a certain type of workflow or thing that you often suggest people look into for these kind of problems to solve with these kind of tools?
Yeah, it depends. So I have this little series where I explain the different workflow architectures, and yeah, it's really this the one where you first classify what is this workflow, what is this process, and then have process specific sub workflows. This is indeed very powerful, and if you master this idea behind it, I haven't seen a flow yet that would not be able to be handled by it. And of course, these tools shine with all the integrations that are there already out of the box. So you have a very nice framework to connect all your systems together and then use the data within these workflows. And I think that's also where they had the origin, like integration platforms as a service. That I think also Workato and Make and Zapier, and they come from this direction. That there the challenge was just to connect your systems and make sure the data flows around. And now, since we are kind of in a new age of IT and automation, this already is a commodity that your systems are connectable. So if you're still not there, then yeah, you should this. But if your systems are still not interconnected now in this age where AI agents can do so much stuff, then you really should work on this, because it's already a commodity that your systems have APIs and that you can use the data. So usually it's not where we should start to explain that an API is something you need.
So if I'm like, and I understand that you're saying so much is possible. So if I'm for example, like a CEO at let's say like a finance company, and I might have a common problem, which is exactly what you said, because I have, an accounting team, a large independent accounting team, and then they have to, they have to look into the different transactions that are happening, compare those to another platform, and make sure that everything was done correctly. And they have to manually do that now. And so, is what you're saying is this kind of task now with a tool like n8n can now be done automatically, or is
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, in general, I think what AI, the current large language model generation, largely solved were document processing, so OCR, or document understanding. They just understand the documents and you can structure it nicely. And this was very tedious and complicated in the past and very resource intense. So you had to train your own engine with thousands of documents before you got bounding boxes, which it was a lot very complex and expensive task. And now you can give it to any frontier model and it just understands the document. And then you can just extract like, hey, give me all the payments on this purchase order, or give me all the data from this invoice, like tax ID, tax numbers, everything. You can just ask the model it, and it will output it nicely. And with the structured output, which is the killer feature for every large language model, structured output, like JSON, like an API, it's all the same. Then you just can handle it absolutely automatically, and in a safe and validated way. That's key, because you always want to validate the output. And yeah, this is absolutely you can absolutely automate this now end to end with a super fast setup. So no retraining, no deployment of models and measuring the drift and so on. It's just prompting now and setting up these workflows in one of these tools, and like this you can have a big return on invest in no time.
David, a lot of times people ask us about implementation timelines or like proof of concept timelines. So in the past, what was that like, like a year or two ago? And what is it like now in terms of how fast you could actually try something out or see this in action?
Yeah, that's the thing, because in the past we trained classifiers back then, but there even the data preparation was not trivial, because you needed very good, very clean data to train it, because every error you have in the data you would have trained it in the model weight, and so your classifier can only be as good as the data you're given. But data you usually have in your production system is not super clean. It has the human error rate in it and so on, and you don't want to train something which is only as good or even worse as the current state. You want to have it better. So you need kind of people, specialized people with really labeling the data up front and making it clean. And then usually you train the first model, and then you have it in production, and then you test it, and then you find new errors or certain cases where groups were overlapping and so on. So usually you had to retrain these models at least once with all of these measurements in between. And we are talking 6 months easily here, that before you have something in production, and when you are talking about non-trivial use cases. And this kind of boiled down so that you can nearly do it while you talk with the customer Of course, it always depends on the complexity, and non-trivial cases still need a lot of setup, but you kind of instantly can test your assumption or test your prompt against a document. And what took weeks and months now only takes minutes to at least validate it. And also there, I hear a lot that people say, yeah, it looks nice in your POC and in your pilot, and when you deploy it in production, it breaks. This is actually not what I experienced. When you have this and you start iterative, then you already have it in production very fast, and then you add more documents, more groups, step by step. But you have it in production very fast. And with these tools, you have that they are all battle tested. So there is no like a POC trap or something like this, or that you stuck in a pilot. These tools are in production globally, and if you have the first version and it works nicely, then yeah, it's in production. So it's not what I experienced with these tools, that you get stuck in pilot phases.
Yeah, I think I've been lucky. I haven't had to had a customer service team where people write in to complain, because normally with what we're running, it works and we iterate and it kind of moves from there. So
and that's also
awesome.
That's a feature even, because of course you find new edge cases and new documents or new classes, or you want to change it. And with with the current large language models, it's just an update in your prompt. Of course you have to measure it, not that you make it worse with your prompt, but that's not so hard to do. There you can grade it. But the benefit is that now it's just an update of a system prompt, and the change is applied kind of instantly, and you don't need to retrain it, redeploy it, have different model versions, fallback, and so on. And this is actually a benefit. So you can get feedback fast and adjust your system prompts in no time. And so this is dramatically faster than all approaches before.
And I think too, I kind of break script a little bit, because I think part of what we always try to tell people is, if nowadays, if people are telling you it's going to take 6 months or a year to deploy something, it might not be the company that you want to work with. Even if it's not us, it should be able to be done fast. You should be able to test it, see it in action. So, a big part of what we try to do is around awareness of these things. And I think, just as a very last question, David, if someone wanted to get started with picking maybe a workflow or something that they would put into our audit tool to see where their costs are going, or what would be interesting, like, is there something that you recommend to people when they first get in touch with you about where to look or what to choose in that?
Yeah, so of course you need to know the workflow. So this is usually the first hurdle, because knowledge is scattered about different people. And so sometimes the companies even don't know how the workflow looks like. But that's the very first step. You really need to know the steps of your process. And when you know the steps of your process, then you should look out for processes which are transactional, means which are really defined step by step. The document is incoming. I have to do this, and the solution is an approved document or something like this. And when you have a workflow which is structured, then usually you are on the right path. And also these are workflows which you can measure very good, because you always want to know or want to be sure that when you spend on large language models or AI, that you have a return on invest, and not that the new flow is more expensive than what you did before. But with these transactional processes, you can measure it really well against the time used there, and then the token spent or the model costs afterwards. And usually there is a huge return on invest, because even that's also funny. You don't need always the last. You don't need Opus or Mythos or Gemini 3, 5, whatever for a document automation. You can get away with fairly, in these times, dumb models, the smaller ones, the Nano, the Flash, or Sonnet, and so on, or even HiQs, which have a very low cost already on tokens. And I also think there is a very low risk that you experience this vendor login and that they bleed you out, because nearly all models can perform this now, and you could even use open sourced models and host it yourself for these tasks. And so there's a huge return on invest on these dull and repetitive tasks. It's not the newest shiny agentic orchestration, whatever fleet of agents doing their thing, but usually that's even not what you want in a business process automation, that some autonomous non-deterministic systems do stuff you have no idea about. You need this defined workflow, and only in some steps in this workflow it can be beneficial if an agent has more agency. But you always want to validate the outcome. So the setup is quite strict, which you need in a business process context. Of course, for your personal use, you can decide to have an agent on your inbox or on your Gmail account and give it access to everything, and you can get away with it. But in a business process, that's absolutely impossible.
David, it's been we could talk, I think, a lot longer, but I
Yeah.
think that's super helpful. So just to wrap up, I think a learning from this past week running the Claude Code webinar is that we should actually simplify things even a little bit more, because many leaders are not ready to code or things like that. I think tools like n8n, low code models, Zapier, Make, Workato are great places to start for folks. And when you do that, it's really highly encouraged that you look at things that are manual or repetitive, and there's a lot more that's possible now. So again, we're going to give the AI audit tool for folks in the chat. That'll give you the chance to go through a free audit of your own. And if you send in your information, you also get the chance to have a one-on-one with us, where we take 30 minutes to talk through some of what you want to be looking at. So thanks again, and have a great rest of your week. Thanks, David.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.